I'm an 18-year-old male, and about a week ago the craziest and most unexplainable thing happened to me. I'm on a vacation in Italy as of now, and because it gets hot out here, people usually take naps from 1 p.m. until 3 p.m. when the temperature is the highest. This little nap time is called siesta because it causes people to have dinner way later in the day, usually from 10 p.m. until around midnight, I'd say. Anyways, my parents, siblings, and I were all having dinner at the beach at around 11 p.m. or so, and it was dark outside. The only thing that was lighting the beach up was the light that came from the beach bar that we were eating at. There was a lot of people that seemed to be smoking at the bars and pubs here, and so even though I'm trying to quit, I shamefully admit that at the time, I really desired a cigarette. The plan was to ask a stranger, but I didn't want my parents to see what I was up to, so I made up an excuse telling them that I was going for a walk on the beach while we waited to be served, secretly hoping that somebody on the beach would give me a cigarette. They excused me and I got up and I walked out of the bar and onto the beach. I remember this song by the band Queen that was fading in the background as I scanned the beach for anybody smoking a cigarette. Like I said, it was late at night and the seawater was probably too cold already, so I wasn't surprised when I noticed there was nobody out on the beach anymore. I walked a little further on the beach when I noticed light coming from behind a tall dune. I figured this could be a bar or a disco or something, so I started walking towards the dune, being pretty confident somebody over there would lend me a smoke. Eventually I got up on the dune when my whole body froze. I kid you not. This was not the same bar I thought I came from. I literally saw my parents talking to my siblings, proving this wasn't just another bar that looked exactly like the same one that I came from. No, this was the exact same bar that I just came from. Not fully understanding what was going on, I turned around to be hit with even more confusion. All I was staring at was an empty, dark beach. Not a single light anywhere. And I remember thinking, there's no way I walked in a circle. I follow the waves of the ocean, so there's no way that I rotated in any way to get back here. I quickly walked to the table where my family was sitting, and I was still very confused as to what was going on when my mom noticed me and said something along the lines of, "Well, that was a short walk." I walked back out onto the beach to see if I saw anything that was familiar at all, but this time there was no lights anywhere, and the tall dune that I had seen further up the beach was no longer there either. I told my family the story in a "you won't believe what happened to me" kind of way, but they just laughed it off and just continued on with their conversation and ignored me. I remember just sitting at the table when I thought to myself, I think I just had one of those glitch in the matrix moments, like on YouTube and Reddit, and to this day I still have no clue what happened. The only explanation is that I somehow looped on the beach. I went to go check out one more time after we finished eating to make sure that I wasn't going crazy, and I wasn't tripping out or anything like that, and there was no tall dune up ahead, or no lights up ahead. I don't know what I was seeing earlier. Was it some kind of a hallucination? I kinda doubt it because I came from around the other way. This is my first glitch. It may not be as exciting or creepy as some of the posts I've seen on this sub, but I still thought that it was worth me telling my story. Yesterday I was on the bus listening to music on my headphones, just looking around, and I saw this woman sitting 3 rows ahead facing me, and I remember thinking, she looks like one actress for my country, but then I started realizing that it wasn't her. It's just this girl had similar features and hairstyle. She was wearing a green dress with some flowers. After this, I continued looking through the window, and after 2 or 3 stops, I see the exact same woman outside on the bus stop. She gets on the bus and sits at the exact same spot, and she's wearing the exact same outfit. And once again, I notice that she looks just like that actress from my country. And I'm like, didn't I just see her on the bus a couple of minutes ago? So yeah, I was kind of weirded out by this whole thing, but after reading so many posts on here, it's almost like this is kind of normal in the glitch in the matrix phenomenon, and it happens to a lot of people. To be honest with you, I wasn't that scared. I was excited to finally have my own story to post on this sub. This happened in Winnipeg, Manitoba, in the late summer or early spring of 1999. I was living in a gritty neighborhood popular with gangs and the unemployed artists in the area. At the time, I was more of the latter, and I was clean and sober. I went to this neighborhood coffee shop to drink coffee and read and write alone. This was a local shop, not some kind of a franchise, and everybody who worked there wore a carved wooden Celtic-style knot on a necklace. I thought it was odd, but there are a lot of artisans in this neighborhood, so I thought maybe they were all fans of the same local craftsperson. I sat down at a table for two facing the door, a habit I picked up from my dad. The server, wearing one of those Celtic wooden knots, took my order. I glanced up at the wall to my right, and the clock said that it was 1 p.m. In an instant, I could hear the staff and some of the other patrons laughing and looking at me. I felt embarrassed and odd. For some reason, I don't know why, but then I looked up at the clock and it said it was 5 p.m. and it was no longer 1 in the afternoon. And it was really strange. It was like the outdoor shot from very, very light to dimming down. It's like somebody flipped a switch and everything changed around me. I was in the exact same position. I didn't feel as if I moved or if somebody moved me, but I was terrified. I grabbed my book and I just ran home. I never went back to that place ever. I still don't know what happened that day and why I lost so much time. A few extra comments about my life at that time. I wasn't isolated. I was plugged into a network of local artists and slackers, but I lived alone and was writing a lot, hours a day, and I was experimenting with the occult a bit, to my regret. This experience is one that has bothered me for literally decades. It's reassuring to know that subs like this exist to give serious thought to these odd experiences. And I have an appointment this week with a doctor coming up. I'll bring this up and search my memory banks to see if I've had similar experiences that I'm suppressing. This happened at work this evening. It's a shop. When we finished, we all go upstairs as we're done downstairs, and we do our last things up there, and then we all head downstairs together. So I'm sitting there at this table waiting for the last girl to come up, chatting with the others. She walks up and goes into the staff room. Then 2 or 3 minutes later, another girl says, "Can we go now?" So I said, "No, we're waiting for Anne. She's in the staff room." And then she says back to me, "Then who's that on the camera downstairs?" And there was Anne downstairs waiting to leave. I asked, did anybody see her walk into the staff room and not come out? And nobody said that they did. However, I remember Anne clearly walking into that staff room, but nobody else did. Freaks me out to this day, because if that wasn't Anne that walked into the staff room, then what did I see? And how come nobody else saw it with me? I just had to put this somewhere because it's freaking me out, and I don't have anybody to tell. My boyfriend is currently in a meeting, so I can't tell him about it, but anyways, I have 8 dinner plates, 4 blue ones and 4 green ones, so I know that it was 8 total, exactly 8. When I moved to pick up the plates from some friends who were getting rid of them, she gave me 4 blue ones and 4 green ones because she said that it would be like having 2 sets of 4 in case I have dinner guests over. I live alone. I just opened the dishwasher that I stuck them in to wash them, and suddenly there are 5 green plates and 4 blue plates. I'm losing my mind. Where did this 9th plate come from? And yes, I know how to count. It was definitely 4 and 4. My boyfriend was in the shower at home, I thought, but he was actually at work. As the title mentions, it's pretty weird, and it happened a long time ago. He's now my ex, and this was maybe 6 years ago. One morning I woke up having the day off, and he was supposed to be at work. But then I hear the shower nozzle turn on and the water turn on, and I think, oh, he got up late and he's getting ready right now. And I call out, "Babe," and I hear him call out, "Yeah." So I get up and walk around the bed to the bathroom, and I'm thinking about how I'm going to tease him about being late once I open the door. As this is happening, I'm thinking of something to tell him, and that's what's on my mind, so I'm a little bit distracted, but I know for a fact that I did hear the cap pop on some kind of a bottle of something, either shampoo or body wash. And then I open the door, and as I do so, I see that the curtain is open, and the room is empty. There's no water, and nothing was on. And I didn't check, but it did look like somebody had showered, but he would have before he left for work, an hour or so before I woke up. So it wasn't like somebody had just gotten out of the shower and the whole area or the whole room was filled with steam, like somebody had just taken a hot bath or used hot water. There were signs that it was a little bit wet, but not like anybody had been in there recently. The room felt very heavy for some reason, and I actually closed the door after turning the lights on in the studio and the bathroom and kitchen area because I was getting a little bit freaked out, to be honest with you. And I don't know if this place is haunted or something, but it just felt weird. It felt like this essence or presence was there. I can't explain it, but you can feel whatever it was when you walked into that room, but he wasn't there. And whatever this thing was, whatever it was supposed to be, it did a pretty good job of capturing the essence of my ex-boyfriend, because it was almost like he was there, but he wasn't. I can't explain it other than to just say that. Something very, very mysterious and bizarre happened to this self-emptying hot tub, and there's no trace of the missing water after it had been full and I had just seen it full. Here's the thing. I literally checked it at around 7 a.m. this morning, and I put in some chemicals as usual, and went back to bed, and at 9:45 a.m., I went back to check it out, and the tub was completely empty. There were no leaks, there was no damp patch on the floor. I lifted it up, touched the matting and the ground around it, and it was dry as a bone. And let me say, to try and drain this thing usually is a real pain in the rear end. It's a tiny plug at the bottom which, when released, allows the water to trickle out, and it'll take anywhere between 5 and 7 hours, and depending on how high the water is and if you have it filled up all the way to the top, which I usually do. After staring dumbfounded for the tub for at least 5 minutes and calling my partner to see if he could shed some light on the situation, I'm still no closer to understanding the mystery of this vanishing water. I just recently filled this tub back up with water, and it remains full, proving that there is no leak anywhere. I wonder if anybody has any ideas of how this thing emptied so quickly. The other strange thing was that if it did empty that quickly, there would have been some residual or leftover water on the sides where it would have funneled down to, but there was nothing in the tub at all. It was completely dry, as if it was never filled up with water at all. I recently met up with some old friends, and this story from 20 years ago came back up again. It's something I've never forgotten, and have never been able to explain. Before I begin, I want to make it perfectly clear that none of us were drunk. There is no alcohol involved in this story whatsoever. A bit of a setup. I live in a small town in England. The road that I lived at the time runs parallel to the high street with several pubs and one nightclub. Another road runs vertically to connect the two. Think of a capital I with lines on the top and bottom. The local nightclub is at the bottom of the I, and my flat at the top. It's a straight road, 10-minute walk from one end to the other. This is very important for the story. So on to the story. Myself and 4 friends found ourselves in this local nightclub, and it was around 11 p.m. or so, and we were stone cold sober. We had nothing to drink, and at that time we were queuing at the bar to get our first drinks of the night. Just before we were served, the power was cut at our location. This nightclub went completely black, and the emergency lights came on at that time, and because of this, everybody was escorted outside of the nightclub, including ourselves. And it turns out that the whole town was out black. It was the middle of winter, so we decided to cut our losses and walk back to my place to finally have a drink. It was no later than 11:45 at this point, probably even a bit earlier than that. So we started to walk back to my place, and it was incredibly dark and eerie. So we did what I think anybody would do in that situation. We tried to scare the crap out of each other on the walk over there. But anyways, the walk was otherwise uneventful, other than it being so dark and creepy, because, like I mentioned, the whole town was out. We got back to my place after fumbling around in this dark room looking for a light source, and we settled in, and I started to make us some long-awaited drinks. That's when one of my friends asked me what time it was. Thinking that this was the beginning of some other spooky story, I waited for the rest of it. I remember her voice chilling me when she said, "No, seriously, what time is it?" We all looked at our watches when she said that, and all of our watches were showing 3:20 a.m., except for one that stopped at 1:05 a.m. I don't know if that's important or not, because sometimes watches just stop, and it could have been a coincidence and it just stopped at 1:05 when all this darkness and this strangeness was going on. But what if it wasn't a coincidence? None of us remember anything unusual aside from the power being out, but somehow we lost 3.5 hours for a 10-minute walk? That doesn't make any sense at all. While talking about this, my friends and I did create an approximate timeline for that entire evening to see if there were any gaps that we could fill in with some information that we were trying to recall at that moment. But some of us remember things that others don't. I guess that's not totally abnormal since this happened 20 years ago. So go figure, I guess, right? But we mostly recall the same thing. None of us have any idea where the 3.5 hours went. But I guess that's something that's normal and that I read about a lot on this forum. Anytime you're dealing with things that have to do with the glitch in the matrix phenomenon. Back in 2019, I was on one of the multiple trips I make a year to visit my dad out of state with my husband and our daughter. It's about 7 hours from where I live. We have a great time for a few days, and then we pack up and head home. At that point, all seemed well. The day after we got back, I went out to lunch with my cousin, and at this lunch, I used my credit card, which was in my wallet, to pay for a portion of the bill. At that lunch, we decided that we would split the bill between the two of us. For what it's worth, I don't use my wallet often. I keep my debit card ID and my husband's debit card in my phone case. It holds 3 cards, and those are the cards that I need to keep with me for the most part, and that I use more. A few days later, I was going to make an online purchase on my credit card and could not find my wallet for the life of me. It wasn't in my purse, and it wasn't anywhere in my house or car, and it wasn't at work. I asked my cousin if maybe I'd left it in her vehicle because I rode with her to lunch, and she says no. It is important to note that she remembers me having my wallet at lunch and using that credit card. After all, I paid for half the bill. Here's where the glitch comes in. I checked back on my messages, and it was about a month ago, just to be sure. After I returned home from my trip, my stepmom sends me a picture of my wallet that she found on her counter at her house in another state. I flipped out when she told me this. She had noticed it before that day, which was weird. What's even weirder is I know, as I just mentioned, that I used it to pay for lunch after I got back from that trip. My cousin saw me with my wallet as well, and I asked her about it. It gets even deeper. The charge that I put on the credit card that was in my wallet also disappeared on my statement. Gone. My cousin could find her charge on her card from that lunch, but mine was gone. It wasn't on any other card, as I obviously have to check every statement every month if I use my cards, because I need to pay for what I charged. I will never be over this, and it still blows my mind every time I think about it. A few days ago, I spent the night at a friend's house. It was 3 people in total. We all wake up, and the guy's house who we were staying at went upstairs to charge his phone. A few minutes later, me and the 3rd friend went upstairs to give him back his pillows that we used when we were sleeping. But when we went upstairs, we couldn't find him anywhere. So we just threw him on the bed. But according to him, he apparently was lying on the bed, uncovered, and one of the pillows hit him. So he says. He wasn't wearing anything to blend in with the bed, and we were up there for about 20 minutes. We couldn't believe that this guy just disappeared. So we weren't tired. I had my contacts on, and so did my other friend. If he was really on the bed, we would have seen him, but we didn't see anybody. But there was nobody on the bed. That's the strange part, when we threw the pillows on there. And my other pal was with me to vouch for that version of the events. My original buddy that went upstairs to charge his phone disappeared, and we have no idea where he went. A few minutes go by after we went downstairs and he comes back down. Apparently, he thought we were messing with him and said that we threw the pillows on him while he was lying on the bed, which was the weirdest thing that ever happened to me and my friend. It's weird, it's like he was invisible right in front of us, and we couldn't see him. But where did he go? He claims that he was there the whole time, but me and my other friend couldn't see him at all. I don't have any really unusual experiences, and I have to admit I do have memory mistakes every now and then, but this one feels really odd for some reason. I'm at a barbershop with my dad during the lockdown, and we went in and I sat outside of the store. It's a university campus, but because of the lockdown, practically nobody was around, and I specifically remember nobody going in other than my dad. He finished up and came outside, and he looked really off-put. We get in the car and he tells me this really weird story, that a complete lookalike of me, except for the fact that this guy was maybe 10 years older, entered the barbershop and made reservations under a nickname that I call myself. He said that this doppelganger that was 10 years older had the same mannerisms, and even looked at me through the barbershop window, according to my dad. So weird. I have an odd story that happened to me a few years ago, and I've never been able to figure this one out. I used to have this Juul vape, and for anybody who has ever had one, you know that there's a series of numbers on the back. These numbers are an easy way to differentiate yours from somebody else's. I remember that the last 3 digits on my Juul being XGY. There was also a few distinct scratches on the backside. One night I got up off my bed and I had forgotten my Juul on my lap. As I stood up, I watched the vape fall to the floor. It hit the floor and slid forward about 3 feet underneath a blanket that was already on the floor, and I heard everything happen as well. I bent down and I put my hand underneath a blanket, and there was nothing. I picked up the blanket, and still nothing. At this point I was confused, so I shook the blanket out completely and even checked the holes in case the vape was somehow still embedded or kind of enmeshed in the blanket. Sure enough, I spent the next hour and a half searching my entire room for that damn Juul. I eventually convinced myself that I just ended up losing it somehow, which was really weird, but I just couldn't find it anywhere. I thought maybe I might have moved it around or possibly threw it somewhere accidentally while I was shaking out the sheet and maybe made the process even more difficult for myself. I mean, at that point, what else was I going to say? My brother was with me the entire time and even saw me drop it. He also helped me look for it, but neither of us could find it anywhere. The next day I figured that it would show up somewhere eventually, but I bought a new one anyways, even though I shouldn't have. Later on that evening, my brother and I met up with a friend to hang out. I asked him if I could hit his Juul, and sure enough, when I saw the Juul I couldn't believe my eyes. It was the same Juul, the same vape that I had dropped the day before. Exactly the same. It had the exact same XGY ending on the digits and the same scratches on the back of the vape. I was so insanely confused as to how this could be. I was trying to think how we could have gotten my vape confused or something, but it just made zero sense now that I think about it, especially after what I just explained. I explained to this friend what happened, and he had no clue what I was talking about. He said, "I've had this one for a while now. However, I know for a fact that it was my vape that I dropped and lost the day before, but he wasn't at the house around that time, and there's no way that he should have had it, or there's no way that he should have ended up with it." Later on that night, when my brother and I returned home, there was another Juul that was laying on the floor. Not my new one, not the old one, not my brother, not a Juul belonging to my buddies. This Juul belonged to no one. I have no idea where it came from or how it ended up there. My brother and I were pretty creeped out at this point. I remember tossing that random one in the drawer and just brushed it off as me losing my mind, but that still didn't explain this vape that just materialized out of nowhere. This event still sits in the back of my mind, and after finding this subreddit, I'm convinced that it was a glitch. Not anything huge, but something that I noticed. I've had the same sock on my top dresser for about a week now because I accidentally put its pair into my laundry basket. Last night I did laundry. The sock was still on the dresser. This morning when I went to go grab the socks, I decided to wear that pair because I could now put them together. So I grabbed the one out of the clean pile that was still on my bed, and I go out to the living room to get dressed. Putting on the first sock, I glanced down and noticed that they're both sitting on my couch. Like I said, nothing major, but I had definitely still seen the second one on my dresser when I went to the bedroom earlier. And these were patterned socks, so it's not like I accidentally grabbed 2 of the random socks that were identical. I only have this one set. Thanks to the universe for making my morning routine a little bit easier. I had a really strange experience with my nose ring a few months back, and still to this day I can't explain it. To preface this story, my job doesn't allow us to wear jewelry during shifts, so for a while I was wearing a wonky nose hoop that didn't fully shut, which made it easier to take off before shifts each day. I had lost it a few times while sleeping, but I always found it the next morning with me within seconds. One morning I woke up and felt my nose ring was missing, so I pawned around as I usually do until I feel it. However, this time it wasn't there. After sweeping my arm multiple times under my pillow and nearby blankets with nothing, I decided to open my eyes and actually start ripping the bed apart because I was angry I didn't find it. My partner, who was heading out, wished me luck as she could not continue to help me. I threw off the pillows, pulled back the covers, and nothing. I stood up and flicked each blanket layer, shaking each one at a time, patting them down, expecting to hear a clink as the piercing hit the floor, but nothing. After moving the bed frame, sweeping the entire room, which was quite small, really enough for a queen-size mattress and a few long boards, I returned empty-handed. I ended up rebuilding the entire room, moved the frame back, put each sheet and the pillows back to where they were, until the room looked exactly as it had, but still no nose ring. I was really frustrated after spending hours to no avail, and called my partner to let her know that it was gone. She found it just as strange as I did, but suggested grabbing a box from the closet that might have an old nose hoop until I could find a new one that I liked. After we hung up and I grabbed the box from the closet, I turned around to sit on the bed, and I stopped right where I was standing. That stupid nose ring was back, right on top of the crease-free top sheet, dead center of the bed and shining in the sun. My nose ring was back after all of that. There was no way that I could have missed it, and no way that it could have gotten there on its own after I rebuilt the entire room and the bed. It's as if somebody had placed it perfectly on top to taunt me after watching me search relentlessly. I swear it must have teleported for an hour or glitched or something. In all honesty, I'm genuinely creeped out, and I told my partner, but she couldn't think of any explanations either. This one is truly perplexing, and beyond perplexing, it's kind of creepy, as I just mentioned. I made the mistake of sliding onto the beach to catch a ball. The coarse sand really did a number on my ankle, gouging out a fresh chunk of flesh that I rinsed out in the ocean before limping back into our hotel. I made the mistake of getting into the hot tub, and my ankle was barking prior, but it howled when I lowered my foot into the hot tub. Fast forward 1 week and this thing looks gnarly, and being on the right ball of the ankle made walking a nightmare, and it kept my ankle from healing properly. My girlfriend and I were moving into a new apartment after our trip, and I remember the move was excruciating because my now infected and uninsured ankle wouldn't heal. I was nauseated and clammy. The pain was severe enough to bring my forehead to a sweat when swiveling my suspended foot on its joint. But here's where it gets even wilder for me. The first night in our new apartment, as we're going to bed, I hobbled into the bathroom. I'm standing there, pre-piss position, when I suddenly feel this electrical buzz go through my body. The only way I can describe it is, it's like when your leg falls asleep, except this was my entire body that was numb. And then my vision slowly tunneled at the center of the surrounding snow. I woke up on the bathroom floor looking up at my panicking girlfriend. No big deal, right? I just fainted, I guess. Well, the pain in my ankle was totally gone. It disappeared. I could walk, run, jump, and rotate the ankle freely, and nothing. No pain. The wound was still there, but the green and yellow parts of it had just vanished. I've never experienced anything so baffling. I went from a 10 to a 0 on the pain scale with just a little involuntary nap. The fainting. How is that even possible? I'm pretty much going through these types of experiences all the time now. But whenever this happens, my belief of quantum immortality, quantum jumping, or reality shifting heightens. I was getting ready to get in the shower. I specifically remember taking off my shirt and then my pants and tossing them in the hamper. I intended on washing my clothes after I got out to see that my pants were no longer there. I've literally checked my entire room, the bathroom, everywhere, and I cannot find them. I kid you not. They literally just disappeared into nothing. Or I just shifted into a parallel reality or something, I guess, right? It's currently the second day, and this happened yesterday, and I still can't find those pants. They're beige, so they're not hard to spot in my room or anywhere in this place that I'm staying at. I swear on everything this is not a joke, and this happens to me very frequently, all the time. I I'd like to start by saying that I've never been one to believe in the quote-unquote Matrix or anything of the sort until this experience. I'm trying to come to some sort of an explanation aside from the glitch theory, but I have not been able to find any resolution to this. It's not scary or spooky or some time traveler thrown through space and time into our dimension or timeline. It's just really odd. I was driving through the streets near my house at around 9:30 p.m., so it was dark and oddly quiet for a weekend night. I live in a college town in Southern California with a vibrant nightlife, so not seeing a single car or pedestrian for the first 3 miles on major roads was extremely unusual. I didn't think much of it until I came down a large hill and around the bend at the bottom. It was a sweeping left bend with a speed limit of 45 miles per hour. I saw the taillights ahead, right at the end of the bend. I noticed that I was getting closer, fast, and I checked my speed and I was still at 45 miles per hour. I slowed down quickly and approached the car ahead of me. I slowed down from 45 to 10 miles an hour. The cars were stopped. There were no stoplights, no signs, accidents, hazards, animals, nothing. I realized they were all stopped in perfectly spaced out intervals, alternating between the left and right lanes. I felt an odd sensation through my body, like a static vibration. What I would compare it to TV static emanating from my bones, the closer I crept up to these cars. All the cars were vehicles that did not come with a manual option from what I could tell. They were all automatic transmission vehicles, and none of the cars had their brake lights on, and they stopped without engaging those lights at all. The sounds of the cars were non-existent. As I pulled up next to the car in the left lane, I crept up to look at the person in the car, and as soon as I broke that perfectly spaced out interval, all the cars began moving at once. No engine starting, no gears being changed, no handbrakes being disengaged, just a sudden movement by all 7 cars. There was no slinky effect like cars always have when they're in a line like that. All 7 cars from front to rear began moving at the exact same time. The static feeling I had wore off further as I got to where the cars had stopped. As soon as that happened, I passed all the cars at once, as fast as I could, because I wanted to get a chance to see the drivers. And all the drivers were expressionless. They did not look over at me at all, and did not show any signs of acknowledgement of me or what had just happened. It's like they were zombies or cyborgs or something. My phone charger went bad Saturday evening, so I went to the gas station and bought a really cheap red cable charger, as red is my favorite color. I got back home and plugged it into the kitchen to charge my phone. While it was charging, I took a shower, and then I passed out on my couch watching Tombstone. I woke up at around 3 a.m. to use the restroom before going back to bed. After using the restroom, I went to grab my phone to see if I got any text messages after using the restroom, and as I was checking my phone, I noticed that the cord of my charger was no longer red. It was blue. I turned on the kitchen light to make sure that my eyes weren't playing tricks on me because it was dark in my apartment, but it was actually blue. I know for a fact when I bought it, it was red because I remember, oh, how cool, a red charger, and then grabbing it because, like I mentioned, red is my favorite color. I spent all day today thinking about it, going back and forth in my head about that situation, but I can't come to any other conclusion other than it was a glitch.